Okay, so, oh, man, I will fuck.
What I'm trying to do now is figure out why the starter's not working, man. I've used a test light to make sure that there's power getting to the starter signal wire, and I've used a voltmeter to make sure that 12 volts is getting to that wire, and it is. So I'm not really sure why I can jump it from the battery to the starter and it works, but for some reason from the ignition it doesn't. It's kind of really throwing me, but I think what I'm going to do though is try a different starter, because I have another starter for that GSR over there, and just hook everything up like it would be hooked up on the engine and ground the starter, and then see if the ignition kicks it out to start up or not. I think that's probably the best way to do some troubleshooting on it. If it does, then I'd say it's probably the starter and I need to just replace the starter. But I don't know. I've never really had this happen to me before, where the wiring's perfect, but for some reason the starter's not kicking out off the ignition, only off of the battery. Like I said, I can jump it and it starts fine, but I don't want to do that every time I go to the grocery store. It's embarrassing. That shit is embarrassing.
Luckily for me, all B-Series starters from any year engine will work with other B-Series setups. I did notice when removing the GSR one, the OBD2 starter was quite a bit smaller than the OBD0 starter, but it still bolted up and worked the same.
Okay, so this is what we got. Got the battery going to the starter, and we got the starter signal wire hooked up here, and we're just gonna see if it pops the starter out and tries to start something. If it works, then we'll know it's the starter and not anything to do with the wiring. So my bad. Turns out you have to ground it also. Ground the starter, because it's not grounded right now. So we're going to take a jumper cable from the negative cable to the body of the starter. Like that. Now let's see what happens. So it tried, but I don't know why it didn't keep going. I think I'll try to tighten down these terminals a little bit and make sure that there's no loose connections. Make sure all these have good connections to them. I think that's all good. Try it again. Okay, so as you can tell, the GSR starter is working. So I'm gonna change the connections over to the old starter just one more time, exactly how it is set up here, and see if that cranks over. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll do it, but we'll see. Okay, so we have everything hooked back up. I haven't touched the battery at all. There isn't a ground, it grounds to the engine. So if this doesn't work, there's a possibility, I guess, that the engine's not grounded correctly or well, and I'll have to address that. But I'm gonna get inside, see if it cranks it over now, exactly the way it was, just everything tightened down. So you see, that's the thing. Now, I have no start at all. Same starter, same everything. I'm gonna go ahead and try to ground it with the jumper cables, just ground the starter and see if that makes any difference or if it will start at that point, because then I'll know I have a bad ground. Okay, so now with the jumper cables placed from the negative terminal to the starter, I'm going to go ahead and turn the key and see if we get anything. Okay, so nothing. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and try to change the starter and see if that fixes it. It's only 3 bolts and it's pretty easy to change, so I'll go ahead and knock that out and we'll see if that fixes our issue. Okay, so new starter is installed. I have everything the exact same way that it was before, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it a crank. There's a couple things I can try though if this doesn't work. So I guess that's it. I don't know. That old starter here must be bad, but I mean, you can jump it and it starts, so I'm not really sure. I'll probably take this to MaxWorks and have them look it over and just see what they can find as far as what's going on with it, because I think it's still a good starter. I just don't know why it's not starting on the ignition. Either way, we got the issue fixed. I'm gonna go ahead and put everything back together and go ahead and give it a good start and make sure it starts and everything's perfect, and then we'll continue. I'm currently making a battery tray area for the back of the car. I just need something to keep the battery from sliding around, and I'm going to do that out of some angle iron and weld like a little box together and then mount it or rib nut it to the bottom of the back of the car area. In EFs, there's really no space in the engine bay to have a battery. It cleans it up quite a bit whenever you move it to the back, and really it's not that big of a deal. I'll show you kind of what I've done already, but it hasn't been done many times on YouTube. If you have any questions about how to wire your battery to the back or anything of that nature, it's all online. It's been done a million times. So as you can see, there's no space at all for a battery. It used to go right here, but the intake that I have actually sits right in that area, so I went ahead and moved it to the back. I have a little power wire that comes up in here. I soldered these together. I'll end up doing something different with this at some point. Currently though, that just gets me on the road. And then I have a red wire that goes back through the car itself. And I don't know if you can see it, but it goes out of the carpet there. It follows along the line here. I used some grommets to keep it away from the metal so it's not rubbing up against the metal. Comes back around. I used a hose there to keep it from rubbing on that. And then right here we have a breaker. That will also make it so I can turn the battery off in the winter time. And then our battery box will sit right in here, and I'll rib nut it to the bottom of the car. So that's the current situation we have going. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll show you kind of what it looks like in the end. I never realized how expensive angle iron can be at like big box hardware stores such as Lowe's or Home Depot or any of those places. Luckily, one of the guys at my tattoo shop ordered a new ice bear, and it came bolted to an angle iron frame, so it served this purpose pretty well. Shout out Mikey Parker. Probably wouldn't touch that one. So we got the frame cut out. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but now we just got to weld this together, all 4 corners. I'll tack and then I'll weld it together.
put a nice coat of black paint on it, and that's my battery box. I'll probably use some of these guys and make me some tie downs that go right here. Weld those onto the side so I can use an actual factory Honda tie down, and that's that. Here it is. It's not pretty at all, but it does hold a battery. The battery fits right in it and fits snug. So that's, that was my main goal. I'm gonna put a coat of paint on this so it doesn't get out of control rusty, and I'll get some holes drilled in it, and then we'll be able to riv nut it down to the back of the car. I also need to weld some washers on here so that I have a way to tie the battery down, which I'll go ahead and do also right now. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the way the relocation turned out. I did go get a factory tie down and it worked just fine. I ended up putting a couple more riv nuts in the frame just for safety. Honestly though, it did seem pretty solid with just 4. I appreciate everyone watching, and if Honda content interests you, please consider subscribing, as that's what we do. I'm going to end this right here, but everyone remember, keep chasing those builds, and I'll catch you on the next one.